Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Gig. I'm your host, Mike Redman. Before we go any further, please like or follow this podcast so we can help as many musicians as possible. Today, I have as my guest Jeff Rona. Jeff is one of those guys that's just full of creative energy. As a composer, he writes as an artist, he writes for his library, as well as other commercial ventures. Jeff is a great example of a successful composer that has diversified into the world of library music. We touched on many subjects that should be of interest to you. So sit back, take a walk, jog, cycle, or whatever it is you do while you're listening to podcasts and enjoy. As always, let's jump right in. Well, hi, Jeff. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am doing great. It's great to be here.
I'm glad. I'm really glad to have you. I just want to start off because we usually just jump right on into the stuff, and I just think you have this crazy resume as a recording artist, a producer, studio musician, arranger, sound designer, entrepreneur, composer. And you and I, oddly enough, I don't know if you have ADD, I have some, but we have very similar career paths.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah. You're right. Except the good news is I'm retired, which, by the way, is awesome. So we're going to start with this. Would you tell me or talk about maybe what it is you love about the music business and why you even do this?
Well, I suppose one answer is I'm not good at anything else.
I did that, yes. I was a good guitarist, yeah.
Honestly, I have had this really odd, meandering career from when I was a kid onward. And I've always felt like my career chose me. To be honest with you, I think I've led a life based a lot on curiosity and on at times, not so clever penchant to say yes a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to try doing this? Sure. Because I'm an experience junkie. I want to experience things. I want to take things on. I like challenges. I like the exploration of the nooks and crannies of our life experiences. And I'm drawn to storytelling. And because I have certain skills in music, I've chosen to make music my means to connect with other people as creators of and consumers of stories.
Could you talk a little bit about the process of writing music for a library as opposed to writing it as an artist, and why, maybe some tidbits about something that people should know if they want to head down this path a little bit?
Yeah. Well, let me start by telling you how I even became aware of and involved in library music. And it happened a long time ago. It happened around 2000, 2001, somewhere in there, 2002 maybe. It was towards the end of my time sharing my studio with Hans Zimmer. I was with him from the time he moved to LA from England for a good long while. And while I was there, I was scoring buckets of film and television. And one day I was in my room writing. I was working on, I don't know what TV series at the time. And there's a knock on my door. And Hans's studio, remote control, back then it was called Media Ventures, but it's the same thing. It's a couple of buildings in Santa Monica, and you just walk down these hallways, and there's 3 or 4 or 5 doors, and there's a composer behind every door. And then there's some communal space, where we would have, meals together and hang out and, have margaritas on the roof. And one day I get a knock on my door, and it's a stranger.
Yeah.
And he goes, what's that music? I said, well, it's a cue from a TV show I'm doing, some drama. He goes, could you write 6 pieces like that and give them to me? It was a ridiculous question from a stranger.
Yeah.
But I said, well, sure, what's it for? And he said, well, I have a music library in England, and what I'm hearing is exactly what we need.
Wow.
And it was this very simple, dramatic music, piano, strings, a few other things, but very evocative, very emotional. So he gave me a few ideas, and I wrote these 6 pieces. And a couple years later, I look back and I realized 3 of them never saw the light of day. And 3 of them got picked up by the Oprah Winfrey Show and probably got the better part of 10,000 licenses. I
Wow.
mean, just
Nice.
every day, these pieces were in use. And that led me to getting phone calls from other libraries. The first one being EMI
Yep.
in the UK, Sonaton in Germany, a crappy company here in California, saying, "Hey, we heard what you're doing. Would you do some stuff for us?" And so I produced, I don't know, 3 or 4 albums of music, not really knowing what I'm doing, but kind of feeling my way and getting a lot of feedback, getting a lot of advice, and that was really pretty germane. And then one day I got a call from the president of EMI. At the time, was a guy named Peter Cox. He's retired since then. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. You should come meet me. We're going to be at our distributor's offices, this company, APM Music." So I went. They're the 800-pound gorilla of music licensing in North America. I think APM is possibly the most successful music licensing entity in North America, possibly worldwide, just because North America is such a big media market.
Yep.
Anyway,
For sure.
I went there, and that's where I met Adam Taylor. And a couple months after that, this was in 2007 or 8, he said, "We have a problem. We've lost one of our best catalogs. The partners had a falling out. They got into a fight, and they don't want to talk to each other, and they don't want to make music together anymore. How would you like to step in and start a small library devoted just to trailers?" And so that's where I got my start.
Wow.
And to answer, so it took me a couple years to put together 6 albums of really high-end, very highly produced trailer music. I was very fortunate that I had some colleagues who really got the emotional content of trailers and the structure of trailers. At the time, trailer music tended to be these long pieces, and they would be cut down.
Right. Right.
But I was really lucky because a friend of mine was actually one of the top editors at one of the top trailer companies.
Oh,
And she
fun.
said, "That's just not how we do trailers." I said, "How do you do trailers?" She goes, "Well, we'll take a few seconds from this and a few seconds from that. And I build this montage where it sounds like it's this evolving, shifting thing, but it's something that I've built from little pieces." So when I started my library, I was the first library to think of trailer music in a more modular way.
Sure.
That it's better to cut to the chase a little quicker. There's still a structure and a format to trailers. We can talk about that later. But to answer your question, that's how I got started. But the whole time I'm doing this, people are saying, "Jeff, that works and that doesn't work." And I was so lucky that I had some really successful, really thoughtful people
Yeah.
willing to give me free, unsolicited advice. And by the time my library came out in early 2009, so it's 15 years this year, and I put out 6 albums. Each album was huge. We do them much differently now, but so it was about 100 and something tracks within 1 year, every single one licensed. Unheard of.
Awesome, man.
And it was just because we took on this somewhat fresher approach, but we never lost sight of the fact that library music at its core is about singling out and focusing on a single emotion
Right.
and expressing it at the highest level of production quality with no wasted energy, no fluff, no filigree, You get to it. You state what you're trying to say within the first 3 seconds, because that's about how much time you have to establish that this is romantic, sad, tense, exciting,
Yep.
scary, whatever it is. And obviously certain emotions are more important than others, and we can talk about that. But I was lucky that in putting out that initial batch of music, within a year, I could really see, well, these are the pieces that are garnering the most energy and the most attention, and these pieces less so. And then it's been a process of refining and experimenting, trying new ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. But with the focus that everything in the library world, generally with media, it's always about the emotional experience.
Yep.
You're not there to express a genre of music. You're there to express a specific human emotion, a feeling, and you live and die by how well you do it, how clearly you do it, how focused you do it, and how successful you are at expressing that one idea.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful explanation. Probably, Jeff, the best one I've ever heard. Do you know Rudy Chung?
No.
Rudy had a trailer company in LA for a long time. Now he's, I don't know if he's head of music for Netflix, but he's up there somewhere. But yeah, and I have friends that write trailer music, but I've never heard them express it exactly that way. And the idea that you were working with a music editor, and they were nice enough to say, hey, I spent a lot of time cutting this. Huh?
She was a picture editor.
Oh, wow. Oh, really? Wow.
Because in the trailer world, the picture editors, the music people at trailer companies are just there to make recommendations and suggestions.
Gotcha.
100% of the power of trailer music is in the hands of the picture editors. They're the ones who do all of this weird, clever cutting and chopping and pulling elements out of stems and adding beats and hits and
interesting. So
all of that. And the music people are just there to say, well, here are three albums that I think you might want to listen to. Okay, I've put together a folder of ideas for you. Here are pieces that I can clear. We got a call from Sony and the, Sony Records, and this new Coldplay, album is coming out this year. So they're really keen to have you use it. So
that's interesting. I've interviewed some, Academy Award winning editors, etc. And it never even crossed my mind, because several of my best friends are editors, and it never crossed my mind that there's editors that actually specialize in trailers, and it makes total sense. It's like,
well, the trailer world is very, very insular. Yeah. It's very specialized. There's a handful of companies that do the lion's share of the work. It's not a job I wish on anybody, from what I can see about the pressure.
It's right. There's a lot of pressure, lots and lots of money, because marketing is spending so much on those trailers. So you have been with APM. APM is an exclusive versus non-exclusive licensing company.
Yeah, we are signed to them as our exclusive distributor in North America, because that company only supports North America, and we're with Universal Production Music for most of the rest of the world. We have a couple of older relationships with a couple of territories. That's not how we started. We started off with a different company in every country.
Would you explain to our listeners, especially these, I would say younger or less experienced musicians that are entering the library of music, or they're writing a piece of music, and I won't mention, the pond that they put their music in. But, what are the advantages of being exclusive with an APM versus having a piece of music and putting it with every library out there that will just take it?
Right. That's a really, really good question. So you're correct, obviously, that there are really two types of library companies. The exclusive ones and the non-exclusive ones. And just to be clear that everybody understands, exclusive means that the music that you give them is only available through them. You can be writing for multiple companies, but the idea is that any composition is signed to that one company, that one distribution licensing company, as opposed to non-exclusive companies who say, we will represent this track, but you're free to put it with other people. So the same track can be available from multiple sources. That business model, which is not by any means new, is dying, has died very, very quickly, because the music editors and the music supervisors who are in charge of putting music into films, TV shows, commercials, promos, trailers, documentaries, whatever it is, they often are working under tremendous pressure, deadline pressure. A lot of decisions get made at the last possible moment. Sometimes they're hoping to clear a more expensive piece of music, and at the last second they can't, and so they have a backup from a library. The problem is that the last thing anybody wants after a piece of music gets dubbed, gets mixed, and then ends up being broadcast through broadcasts or cable or streamers or online, is that it's become so easy. As you know, the technology to find people cheating is pretty strong. So if your music is available from multiple sources, you license a track through one of them, those other ones are going to get a report saying, hey, that piece of music got used in that commercial, but they didn't license it from you. So now they're going to pick up, they're going to make the call. It might be a cease and desist. Sometimes these are even automated. And that reflects poorly on the editors and supervisors who picked your music.
Right.
As such, most reputable, professional music editors and music supervisors and picture editors will not use music that is available through multiple venues, multiple sources, non-exclusive. Right. They will only work with those companies like Universal, BMG, APM, and Warner Chappell, those major players, and there's the mid tiers as well. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't want to name names. It's not important. The point being that the feedback I've gotten is that most people outside of just like YouTubers and so-called content creators will not license a track from a non-exclusive source. Yeah. And so we've never dealt with it. Yeah. And it's gotten harder to cheat. You mentioned retitling, where you take a piece of music, you gave it another name and you place it somewhere else, you give it another name. That's not how music detection works. Right. So, Content ID, Google's platform for knowing what music is playing online, primarily YouTube, they don't care what the name of the piece of music is. Right. They'll just go, that piece of music. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you remaster it. It doesn't matter if it's highly edited. It doesn't matter if it's under, gunshots and helicopters. The technology for knowing that a piece of music is that piece of music has gotten good, and AI is only going to make the ability to weed that out stronger. So the argument that you can kind of game the system is you can't.
Jeff, would you explain, because this is always a funny question, we can give it a pretty simple example, but when you're writing, depending on who you're writing for, you may be getting paid some production fee up front to do a track, or nothing. A lot of times it's just nothing. It's just a straight distribution deal. What mailbox money is, and that's basically how you get paid over time.
Oh, well, of course. It isn't different in the library world than it is in the bespoke custom scoring world, work for hire. Sure. If I'm hired to score a TV show, I get paid a fee to write the music.
Yeah.
If a track from my library or a track of mine from an album gets licensed, I get that upfront money, goes into the show, and whether it's a work for hire where it was custom written for it, or it was licensed from an album, or licensed from a library, once it's in the show, it's in the show. Some money was paid up front, either hiring a composer to write it or licensing it from a company that owns the rights to the master and the publishing. Once that is there and it is performed, meaning shown on whatever it is, whether it's network television, cable, and there's still cable, it is actually surprisingly strong. A lot of people still use cable, or streaming from the dozens or hundreds of streaming stations, from Disney Plus to Paramount Plus to Hulu Plus to Netflix, whatever. There are agreements in place through the copyright laws that say that when a piece of music is that's called a performance, even though it's recorded, some money is paid to the composer and some money is paid to the publisher. 50-50 split, and to the master and the publisher. So, and that's called performance money, or royalties. Yep, is the word we all use, and what you like to call mailbox money. Although no mailboxes are harmed in the making of this money anymore. It used to be, performing rights societies, which we can talk about, used to actually mail out checks, but that's fortunately long gone. But it's email money now. Yeah,
exactly. You've got money.
But and what's interesting is the way the world is evolving is, depending on the nature of the project and the country that it's being done in, sometimes you'll make most of your money from whatever that sync fee, that license fee is, or that work for hire fee. And you'll get very little on the back end because these very small streamers pay nothing. They pay, almost as bad as Spotify, which is the worst. And I hope they're not a sponsor of your show.
No, they aren't, but they won't be after this anyway, so okay.
Well, you can edit this out. So
I love it.
So as a composer, and for me as a library owner as well, I want to see some money come in for the actual synchronization of the music, some kind of upfront fee. And then, a year plus later and then ongoing, I will start to see some money that gets paid to me for owning the masters as the composer or as the publisher. And that's in perpetuity. So sometimes you're going to make most of your money up front and get a little trickle on the back end because of these very small streamers. But sometimes it's quite the opposite. There are these things called blanket licenses, which we can talk about later.
Different animal. I don't like those, but
you probably already talked that out on some other episodes, but we can always rehash. But the idea is that there are these very inexpensive licenses where you, as a composer and as a publisher, make close to nothing. A very small amount, with the expectation that the back end, the royalties, the mailbox money, will be substantial. And in fact, there are times when it is. In Europe, especially, somewhat. North America probably trails Europe.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your new venture, Camerata Records. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, look, having a music library is a very satisfying experience to me as a producer. I don't write very much of the music. I have a small but phenomenal team of producers, writers, songwriters, hip-hop artists, etc., who I work with. But at the same time, I'm a composer, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I've been releasing solo music. It's something that I neglected for a long time because I've been incredibly busy scoring film and TV and video games.
Yeah.
And so I I felt it was time for me to focus at least a little bit of time and energy on releasing music that's important to me. So I've
Hmm.
been putting out my own music through a couple of different catalog, a couple of different labels rather.
Hmm.
And then I had this desire one day to just have a small boutique label of my own for
Hmm.
my music, as a home for my music, as a home for the music of people whose music I really admire. It's
Hmm.
primarily kind of a cross between ambient music and new classical music.
Okay.
And it's just a small venue of music that is authentic, um emotional, uh, and so we literally just put out our first album last week
That's
with
cool.
a really talented young composer, Adele Etheridge Woodson. She's
Hmm.
fantastic, and I'll have some music out, and I'm working with a couple of other artists. The other thing that I've been doing, um, which covers a few different things, is I got very involved in video game music a few
Yeah,
years ago. I had the
sure.
opportunity to score a handful of AAA video games and then
Yeah.
realized that it was a large and interesting market of the people who develop games and the way they view music. And a partner of mine who actually started with me at my own production company here at my studio,
Hmm.
and who was a part of Liquid Cinema, we decided that we really wanted to do a project that was video games and video games only.
Hmm.
So we started this company just under 5 years ago called Empiria Sound and Music.
Right.
And Empiria, it's a made up word, Emperia. Empiria Sound and Music started off as a small company, just a small team of composers with tremendous knowledge of video game music, which is
Mm.
written very differently because
Yeah, I'm gonna
it's
actually have.
interactive.
I think that I'm gonna come back to you because. But go ahead. I want you to finish this. But I realize because, especially because of you, you have some time constraints, and you were so. We went into depth a little bit on libraries. If you have time, I want to come back and talk to you again specifically about games, writing for
And then
games
you know what?
versus film.
I would love to, and maybe I can
Yeah,
even get my partner to join me.
that would be fun
Um,
because that's a whole, like you said, it's a whole different
it
world,
is a
man. Yeah.
completely different universe, you know.
Hmm.
Unlike writing for film or TV
Yeah.
or libraries,
Right.
music for games is interactive. The player
Yeah.
is actually making the music change in
Yeah.
real time. So we work in a very unique format. But within that, we started
Hmm.
putting out music. We started our own library of
Wow.
music
Cool.
in the that is in the
Yeah.
style of leading video games. It's very broad,
Hmm.
it's very eclectic. There is no style. Everybody thinks of a particular sort of
Hmm.
brutal, hardcore metal or
It's
orchestral
all over the
hybrid
place.
thing.
Yeah.
Video games are very eclectic, but we started a library, Imperium Music Works,
Hmm.
and then last year we started our own record label, Imperia Records, to
Wow.
put out soundtracks and covers, because in the video game world there's a real love of covers, and
Yeah.
oddly we had several hits doing lullabies based on nostalgic video game themes, and we've been doing tons of them, and it's
Wow.
been really gratifying. We've been working with Decca Records, we've been working
Yeah.
with a couple of other companies as well, kind of advising and writing music for them, but now we have our own label, and the label's growing very, very fast.
Yeah. So I'm going to move to just a rapid fire, and then we'll finish it with one question. We'll get out of here because
Oh,
this kind of leads us right from where you were. Your favorite movie of all time?
Contact, Robert
Ooh.
Zemeckis,
Okay. I have to. Okay. On that one, I have to ask why.
Jodie Foster.
Oh.
Um, it's a beautiful movie about the relationship between the spiritual and the evidentiary,
Hmm.
science and faith. Uh, it's a thriller with a phenomenal amount of heart,
Hmm.
and in the end, it's just a movie about what it means to be human.
I'm going to go back and watch it. It's been a long, long time. Thank
I
you.
watch it about once a year.
Wow. My mind, oddly enough, is Silverado, so that couldn't be further. Okay, you're a hobby that you have outside of the music business.
I paint.
Ooh, what kind of painting? What do you like to paint?
I semi-abstract, but there are some themes in the work. But I would call it strangely abstract, but evocative of certain things that you see, including music.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of the music that you like to write too, in a way.
Can be.
How many hours a day do you work?
Somewhere between 10 and 14.
That's a big day. That's a good day. It's kind of amazing to me. You've accomplished a lot without working 24 hours a day. Okay, last rapid. Toughest project you've ever worked on?
I don't want to pass on that, but I will say that everything I've ever done has been about a challenge. The very first movie I ever scored was a situation where an Academy Award-winning director fired an Academy Award-winning composer.
Oh my goodness.
And there were 3 weeks left to score a movie. And for various reasons, it fell on me with no experience and for a major company. And every minute was filled with just utter fear of disappointing these people.
Sure.
And just, what the fuck am I doing?
Yes.
And the challenge was about not letting go of who I am as a composer in order to fulfill what I thought were certain expectations. And every project since then has presented some sort of challenge, whether it's disorganization, miscommunication, getting into the video game world and working on music that is highly interactive.
Sure.
And learning how to make music that can pivot and shift and move. The layers of complexity of video game music dwarf the complexity of even the most complicated film score. Dealing with difficult people, dealing with amazing people who you really don't want to disappoint. So I don't have a single most challenging project, but I will say that solving problems is key to whatever it is I've done. To be honest with you, I don't think of myself as a natural composer. That is...
I never did.
It doesn't just... Yeah. I mean, I do write very quickly at times. I'm efficient. I've gotten faster over time. But composing is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. It's easier for other people. I know people where the ideas are just there and they have this amazing keyboard technique. I'm a flute player, so sitting in front of a sequencer and playing things in on a keyboard isn't easy. Nothing about my job is easy. Not one thing about it. So everything I do is a challenge, even if it's literally just bar one.
If I listened to you and it sounded something I really wanted to do, but I had never done any library music, how would you suggest that I get started and maybe say I've written 10 tracks and who do I go to?
Sure. Yeah. That's a really, really good question. When I feel really lucky that I got started in the library world when it was still a little less saturated, a little less jaded, a little less competitive. It's so much harder now. I would hate to be starting out now as a library owner, as somebody starting a library, but as a composer who writes music and wants to get an into writing for libraries. I'd say a few things. First of all, take a day and just listen to library music. Every library has music on their websites.
Yep.
The big libraries like APM or Universal, you don't need to have an account just to listen.
Sure.
So you can use the search engine, you can go to their new releases, you can go to their playlists, steep yourself and become a world-class expert in what what library music sounds like.
Sure.
Because the first thing you'll notice is an incredible attention to detail and production quality. It's a given. If you're not a good producer, it doesn't matter if you're a good composer. Right. So listen to what's out there and kind of take notes. How is this music structured? Long intros, short intros, B sections, breakdowns. What is
Fade
library music structurally?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then write a few pieces, but you have two paths forward. One is you can start to reach out to libraries. They tend to have contact forms or emails on their websites. We do at Liquid Cinema, although it takes us a long time to get to them. But don't necessarily feel... So what I've learned is our company, my company, works differently than other companies.
Sure.
People send us their music. We don't say we'll take it. We say, oh, you're really good. We have an album we're working on that we think you'd be perfect for. Would you like to write 3 or 4 tracks of this? And give them a brief where we say we're looking for music in this particular genre or style or vibe. So only on a tiny handful of occasions have we actually taken music from somebody and put it into the library. Typically, when we hear something, we go, yeah, you're good. You can write for us. We'd love it. That's not the case with other companies. Now, we do get approached where somebody says, hey, I've written an entire album of trailer music, and it's mixed, it's mastered. We can't use that because we have our own definitions of mixing and mastering and structure. And so we'll say, well, can you go back in and redo it? A lot of people say, no, it's finished. In which case we just send them on their way because they will find a company that'll do it. So I also advocate for joining the PMA, the Production Music Association, as a networking opportunity and to be exposed to the workshops and seminars that they host online, and they do an in-person one once a year. And you kind of need to just build your knowledge base so that you know who you are relative to everybody else who's in line in front of you. Right. And for what it's worth, not every type or style or genre of music finds its way into libraries very successfully. There isn't a lot of use for jazz, but there's some. So there's sort of a hierarchy of usefulness that I think is important. Rarely is a single track a hit. Your composer who got a $25,000 royalty check, that's amazing.
That's why I said that, because it was very, very, very rare. Yeah,
it's a bit of a rarity. We've had a couple of pieces, we've had a handful of pieces garner that kind, but typically it's those people who are committed to building up a catalog of works with the idea that it's like that you're a catalog within a catalog. Because if you aren't willing to really hunker down and write several dozen pieces, your ability, at the minimum, your ability to make it into something really profitable, worthwhile, diminishes. Aren't a lot of hits in the sync world. Right. So you got to build up a body. But specific to your question, yes, have some pieces to play. Send the link to as many libraries whose music is similar to yours, but make sure that you've really listened. Take the time to educate yourself and become an expert so that you know what? that company only does big drum albums, so that's not my thing. These guys only do, world music. These people specialize in kitsch. These people specialize, not every library specializes, but
Yep.
most
Sure.
do. And so, yeah, I think it's become knowledgeable, make sure that your stuff sounds as good as anything you hear from other libraries. Not everybody can do that.
Yep.
Not everybody knows if their music sounds bad. I think that's
that's
an
a whole
acquired
that's a whole
skill.
different that's a different
Well, I
episode.
feel that that's actually the one thing that you gain from experience is knowing when you've written something crappy. I didn't at
Yes.
first, but then I had enough people saying, "God, that's really bad,"
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and
In the
and
nicest
and
way
knowing that they're
possible.
right. So yeah, I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that good libraries are very, very busy. You have to be patient. Don't hound them. Don't keep coming back every week. Hey, have you listened? Have you listened?
Yep.
Keep your expectations low. Be tenacious. Be patient. And see how it goes.
Jeff, this was awesome. I could talk to you all day. I know you've got
I
work to
would,
do,
not
but
today, but
yeah,
how I
yeah,
would love that.
yeah, we will do
And I would
that.
love to come back and have a conversation about what it means to write, to be a composer in the video game world. It's a whole different animal. It's my pleasure, and thank you for doing your show. The people you've had on and the insightfulness is hard to find. So thank you for your service.